Okay, so now we'll start with what is called as an operon concept. Before we actually see taking some examples of how genes are regulated in case of bacteria, in case of lower organisms, let us first understand some of the basics. So what exactly is meant by operon concept? So to begin with, this is the disclaimer that this PowerPoint presentation is meant only for you students of life sciences, and it should not be used for any other purpose, copied or posted on any site without the permission of author, that is me. And some of the pictures in the presentation have been taken from public domain websites to make the topic easy to understand. The credit for those pictures remain with the original publisher. The first question that comes in mind is, what is the need? Why do you say, or why do we have these operons, or what exactly are operons? So basically, genes in lower organisms, in fact, it is applicable to some extent in higher organisms also, but primarily in lower organisms, genes are grouped. Genes of a particular metabolic pathway, they are clustered, they are grouped. On the genome, they are placed next to each other. Okay. What is the reason? The reason is pretty simple. They're mentioned over here. The reasons are, what are the reasons? That prokaryotes, as you now understand, they have limited resources. Prokaryotes have limited resources. They are unicellular organisms, and their resources, access to resources is quite limited. Very often, they live / survive in hostile environment. It's a struggle for survival. So they live in hostile environment, both in terms of environmental condition as well as in terms of nutrient conditions, availability of nutrients, which is mentioned in the next point. Because they live in scarcity of nutrients or fluctuating nutrient supplies. They don't know what is going to be available. So the supply of nutrients keep fluctuating, and they have to very rapidly adjust to whatever is available to start metabolizing whatever is available. Now, because of these situations primarily, hostile environmental condition as well as fluctuating nutrient supply, these conditions necessitate optimal utilization of whatever they have. Whatever resources they have, they should be optimally utilized. Okay, and when we say optimal utilization, along with this, optimal utilization also must be accompanied by economy. A bacteria cannot engage itself into wastage of energy, wasteful metabolic pathways. So it has to ensure economy. It has to show flexibility. Okay, flexibility means, it should be capable of utilizing compound A, metabolite A, for its energy needs at this point of time, and another couple of minutes from here, if compound B appears into the medium, it should show that flexibility that it is capable of utilizing compound B also for fulfilling its energy requirement. And it should be able to do it swiftly. Okay, if it takes very long time, because bacteria has got a lifespan of only 30 minutes. So with the change in environmental condition or with the change in nutrient supply, it should be able to not only switch over from one compound to the other compound, one metabolite to the other metabolite, but it should be able to do so very quickly, swiftly, with a lot of speed. Okay, so its ability to respond swiftly. So not only economy is important, okay, it should not engage into, needless metabolic pathways where there is a wastage of energy, wastage of, scarce resources. It should be able to demonstrate high degree of flexibility, and it should be able to respond to a given situation very quickly. Okay. For these reasons, the prokaryotic genome has characteristic feature. I told you earlier, very often genes coding for enzymes of a given metabolic pathway are clubbed, are grouped. Okay, Let's say you have a metabolic pathway. We'll understand it taking one example, but a metabolic pathway where 3 enzymes are required. So what is being done by the nature is those genes which code for those 3 enzymes. There may be 3 genes, one gene, one polypeptide, if the enzymes are simple proteins, or there may be more than one gene, 2 genes coding for 2 different subunits of a given enzyme, and those 2 subunits join to become an enzyme. So whatever may be the number of genes which are required for coding of proteins of those 3 enzymes, they are very often grouped, they are very often clubbed. Okay. In fact, what I mentioned over here is they are arranged in a sequence in which enzymes coded by them are required in the metabolic pathway. If enzyme A is required first, so in the transcription sequence, the gene for enzyme A will be appearing first. If enzyme 2 is next, enzyme B is next, then gene coding for enzyme B will be in the transcription sequence will be next to gene coding for enzyme A, like that. Not necessarily every time, but in many cases you will find that this is the kind of arrangement. Please remember that in prokaryotes, the transcription and translation, they go hand in hand. That means even before the transcription is over, translation starts. So enzyme A, the genes will get transcribed first. By the time gene B gets transcribed, gene A will start, the mRNA of gene A will start getting translated also, and enzyme A will appear and it will start converting the first substrate into the first intermediate. And very often, for ease of regulation, they have a common control. Okay, so instead of having independent controls for all the expression of those genes, switch on and switch off. Expression switch on means genes will be transcribed, and expression switch off means the transcription will be stopped. So for those group of genes, they have a common control. That means you have just one switch. So you switch it on, all genes, expression of all genes will start, and if you switch it off, the expression of all gene will stop. So for example, in a hall, let's say in our lecture hall where you used to take lectures, seminar hall, let's say there are 10 ceiling fans. So all of them have independent controls. All of them have independent on and off switches. All of them have independent regulators for regulating their speed. This is one arrangement. The second arrangement could be that all 10 ceiling fan in that particular hall, they have just one control, one regulator, one on and off switch and one regulator. Okay. So if I put it on, all fans will be on whether you require it or not. And if I put it off, all fans will be off whether you want it or not. Right? So something like that, in case of prokaryotic genes, they are clustered, they are grouped, they are arranged very rationally. There is a logic behind their arrangement in that group. And the third is that they have a common control. These 3 points are very important. Okay. For ease of regulation, they have a common control. So I've tried to show it to you over here. Let's say this is one metabolic pathway. Okay, you have A getting converted to B, B getting converted to C, and C getting converted to D. And this particular reaction is catalyzed by E1. This particular reaction is catalyzed by E2, and this particular reaction is catalyzed by E3. And then you get the final product. Okay, D is the final product. Right? So the gene which codes for enzyme E1, assuming that it is a simple protein and it is coded by one gene, in the sequence of transcription, it will appear first. The gene which codes for enzyme E2, because it is required for catalyzing the second step, in the transcription sequence, this is the direction of transcription. So the gene coding for enzyme E2 will be arranged at second position. Okay. So this will be transcribed first, and by the time RNA polymerase transcribe gene 2, this will start getting translated. You will have enzyme E1 produced, synthesized, and it will start catalyzing conversion of A to B. Okay, and by the time A gets converted to B, enzyme E2 will appear and B will be converted to C. And by the time B gets converted to C, E3, which is next, it will get transcribed and translated, and it will convert C into D. So this arrangement makes what? This arrangement makes that what we are talking of swift response, rapid response to a given situation. Suppose metabolite A appears into the medium and bacteria wants to utilize it for the purpose of providing energy, then it should be able to do so very quickly. And this is the kind of arrangement that they have. Those genes are clubbed and it will start transcribing those genes in a sequence. Those genes will be translated, means mRNA will be translated, and those enzymes will start appearing in that particular sequence, in that particular order. They catalyze the reaction in a given metabolic pathway so that it can be able to utilize metabolite A quickly for fulfilling its energy requirements. So this is the kind of arrangements, bacterial genome has. So this is one, what you can say, real-time actual picture. You have this glycolytic pathway. Okay, so glucose getting converted to glucose 6-phosphate, glucose 6-phosphate getting converted to fructose 6-phosphate, then it is getting converted to fructose 1,6-bisphosphate, like that. Okay, so the enzymes which catalyze these reactions, normally it is expected that they are arranged, their genes are arranged in that particular order. Please remember, very often this is the case, may not necessarily be all the time, but very often this is the case that the genes, they are arranged in that particular order in the sequence of transcription, so that there is no wastage of time, there is no lag period. Okay, let's say gene which codes for this particular enzyme, this particular enzyme, let's say, okay, this particular enzyme is X. So this particular enzyme, let's say the gene, this is required second last step. This is required for catalyzing the second last step. And if its gene is present at sequence number 2, it will get transcribed, it will get translated, and that particular enzyme X will be just remaining idle over there, because by that, it should have this particular intermediate. Then only it will be able to catalyze 2-phosphoglycerate to phosphoenol pyruvate. Okay, and it is going to take time. These many enzymes are required. Okay, so there is no point this way, this kind of arrangement. So usually genes which code for earlier enzymes in the metabolic pathway, they are usually placed first, second, third in the order of transcription, and you maintain the sequence is maintained in the order the enzymes are required in the given metabolic pathway. So now, what is operon? So this operon, this concept, it came forward from these two celebrated biochemists. They are, you must have heard the name, Jacques Monod and Francois Jacob. Jacob and Monod, by this name, they are very popular. What they hypothesized, in case of prokaryotes, and now it still stands true, the level of enzymes or their activity in prokaryotes is regulated at the level of transcription. Very important statement, that enzyme activity, the regulatory switch for regulating the level of enzyme means number of copies of enzymes or their activity. In case of prokaryotes, please understand, we are talking about prokaryotes. In case of eukaryotes, there are further levels of regulation. But in case of prokaryotes, enzyme activity or their copy number, it is regulated, it can be regulated only at the stage of transcription. If we fail to regulate, then, and if those enzymes get synthesized, then it is a point of no return. In prokaryotes, you don't have further levels of regulation. Whereas in case of eukaryotes, you do have further levels of regulation. So they put forward this particular hypothesis, this particular concept, that in case of prokaryotes, the enzymes or their activity, they are regulated at the level of transcription. Okay, and in 1961, based on these observations, they put forward what is called as an operon concept. Okay, and for this particular path-breaking concept, in 1965, they were awarded the most coveted Nobel Prize in Physiology and Molecular Biology, Physiology and Medicine. Okay, so what is the operon concept? Let us see what is the operon concept. So they defined operon as a complete unit of gene expression. As a complete unit of gene expression. And what it is made up of? It is made up of what are called as structural genes. The components of operon. This is component number 1, structural genes. Second component is regulator gene or genes. There are usually, or there is usually only one regulator gene, but in some cases there may be more than one regulator gene also. So this is component number 2. And the third component is control elements. This is component number 3. These are the components of operon. Operon model proposed by Jacob and Monod, right? So these are the 3 components. Operon is defined as a complete unit of gene expression, number 1, and it is made up of structural genes, usually more than 1. Regulator gene, usually 1, but in some cases it can be more than 1 also, therefore into bracket S, and then there are control elements. Okay, so now let us understand what is meant by structural genes and what is meant by regulator genes. Now, structural genes, genes which code for structural or functional proteins. Okay, functional proteins का मतलब है कि enzymes. Genes which code for enzymes, functional proteins, or some proteins only have structural roles. Okay, collagen, keratin, these have got structural roles only. So they don't have enzymatic activity. So genes which code for either proteins which have structural roles or proteins which have got functional roles. Functional role का मतलब है enzymatic activity. And large number of genes, they fall into this category. Majority of genes are structural genes, means they code for either structural proteins or they code for functional proteins. Okay. Second category, regulatory genes. The gene product, the product of this regulatory gene or genes, more than one agar hai to, binds to the control sites. Control sites are the third elements of the operon. So the gene product of regulatory gene, that protein which is coded by regulatory gene, it usually binds to control sites. And what does it do? It regulates the expression of structural genes under its control. And therefore the name regulatory gene. So what does this gene do? This gene is responsible for regulating the expression of structural genes under its control, by whom or through expressing a regulatory protein, right? As I said, there is generally one regulatory gene to every operon, but there are some exceptions also where you have more than one regulatory gene. So per operon, for every operon, the structural genes may be multiple, okay, but usually the regulatory gene is only one. And the third element of operon is what are called as control elements. So what is meant by control elements? Region of DNA within the operon where regulatory gene product, okay, regulatory gene product means the protein coded by this gene, RNA polymerase and the transcription factors, they bind. Okay, usually you know where the RNA polymerase binds. RNA polymerase binds to a region which is called as promoter. Okay, so this is a small region, control element within each operon, you know, where the regulatory gene product means the protein coded by the regulatory gene, the RNA polymerase, and in some cases RNA polymerase by itself cannot start transcription. It requires the help of few additional proteins which are called as transcription factors. They can go and bind. So those sites are called as control sites. Those sites are called as those elements are called as control elements. So 3 components: structural genes, more than one. You can have 3, you can have 5, you can have 7, 6, multiple numbers. Okay. Usually all the enzymes have a given metabolic pathway, they are clubbed. So number of genes required for coding those enzymes, you know, they will be grouped together. Regulatory gene per operon, usually there is one. And what does it do? It regulates the expression of, this is the on-off switch. It regulates the expression of the structural gene under its control, usually one. And control elements, these are sites. These are DNA regions where the regulatory gene product means the protein coded by regulatory gene, the RNA polymerase, and additional protein factors which are required for efficient transcription, they can come and bind. Those sites are called as control sites. Those elements are called as control elements. These 3, they comprise, they make one operon. Okay, so just to understand, we'll take one example of an operon. So this is an example of a lac operon. This is an example of a lac operon. This is the simplest of operon. This is a simplest of operon. Okay, it is made up of 3 structural genes. There is one regulatory gene and there are control elements. 3 components of the operon. So what are the structural gene? This structural gene number 1, X. It is called as LAC X, LAC Y, and LAC Z. Okay, so these are the 3 structural genes. Okay, and there is one regulator gene. This is the regulator gene, which is called as LAC I. Because it is of the LAC operon, LAC I, regulatory gene. Okay, and these are the control elements. Okay, control elements mein, this is very familiar promoter. Promoter is the site where you know RNA polymerase comes and bind, and it is a characteristic. It has got characteristic features also. You know, -10 and -35 consensus sequences which are recognized by the RNA polymerase. And between the promoter and the first nucleotide to be transcribed, you know, you have this operator region. O stands for operator. O stands for operator. Operator usually is the site for binding of the regulatory gene product. Means the protein which is coded by regulatory gene, usually it comes and bind to operator region in the control region. Operator region, operator sequences in the control region. So you must have noticed one thing, that usually the control region and the regulatory gene, they are located upstream. They are located upstream the structural genes. They are located upstream the structural genes. LAC I will have its own promoter. LAC I will have its own promoter. Means the regulatory gene will have its own promoter, right? Where RNA polymerase will bind independently and will transcribe this, which will get translated, and you will have a regulatory protein. And this regulatory protein, whatever may be its shape or structure, typically it goes and bind to the operator region. Okay, regulatory protein, the product of the regulatory gene, it usually goes and bind to the operator region. Okay, and promoter, you know, is the site where RNA polymerase binds. And these are the structural genes. So the point to be noted is that generally, the control region, control elements, and the regulatory gene, they are usually located upstream the structural genes. Okay, so you may have 3 structural genes, you may have 2 structural genes, you may have 5, and then there is a transcription termination signal here. Okay, where transcription will stop. Right, so this is one example of an operon, and we have taken the example of LAC operon, which is considered, which is supposed to be the simplest of operon, and we'll be understanding this operon in more details in the lectures to come. Now, what do you understand, or what is the difference, or how do you differentiate between structural genes and the regulatory genes? So we have now grouped, we have now classified. So how do you differentiate between the two? So a mutation in a structural gene, in a given structural gene, now you understand what is meant by mutation also, usually affects the expression of that particular gene only. Okay. If there is a mutation in that particular structural gene, it is going to affect the expression. Expression means the transcription of that particular gene only. That particular gene will not only get expressed, it will also get translated also, but that protein will not have, may or may not have biological activity. So the point that I am trying to convey is, if there is a mutation in a structural gene, only that particular gene and its product gets affected. The protein may not have biological activity, may not. It depends now, where is the mutation. So the protein may have biological activity or may not have biological. If it is a nonsense mutation, it may not have any effect. Okay, so it depends where the mutation is taking place, but it is going to affect only that particular gene and its product. Suppose in a operon there are the operon, the example of which we have taken lac operon, there are 3 structural genes, and let's say leg Z. Leg Z has got a mutation, so only leg Z is going to get affected. Only the protein coded by leg Z is going to get affected. Leg Y and leg A will not get affected. Okay. Whereas the difference is, whereas if there is a mutation in a regulatory gene, then it is going to affect the expression of all the structural genes under its control. Okay. This is the basic difference between the 2 types of genes. If there is a mutation in a regulatory gene, let's say LAC-I, then this mutation is going to affect the expression of all the 3 structural genes under its control. Okay, I'll take another example. So in this virtual setting, virtual classroom setting, okay, if of the 21, 22 students, those who are participating here in this, if anyone loses the internet connection, he will only be out of the class. Remaining 20 are going to be in the class. But if I lose the structure, I lose the internet connectivity, the 21 of you, all those who are joining my class, all of you are going to get affected. So in this particular situation, in our arrangement, in our relationship, I am the regulatory gene and all of you are the structural genes. So if I lose internet connectivity, all of you are bound to get affected. And if any one of you lose internet connectivity, only that person will be affected. Remaining 20, 22, whatever number, they will be attending my class. For them, my class will be available. So a mutation in a structural gene affects only that particular gene. There is a mutation in a regulatory gene affects all the structural gene under its control. This is the difference, fundamental difference between the 2. Now, we will be coming across these words, what are called as enzyme induction. So people have noticed this particular fact that certain enzymes in lower organisms, they are present only when that organism is grown in presence of appropriate substrates. See how things have been economized, how economy is exercised. So bacteria doesn't maintain an inventory of all the enzymes. Waiting for what? Waiting for suitable substrate to come in. And that substrate may not come in its lifetime. So what is the point maintaining the inventory? So those enzymes will appear in bacteria when that particular substrate on which that enzyme acts, it appears into the medium. This process, this phenomenon is called as enzyme induction. This phenomenon is called as enzyme induction. You have to remember this definition. The small molecule, which is usually a substrate, the appearance of which causes the synthesis of this enzyme, okay, that is called as an inducer. And the enzymes are also called as the inducible enzymes. Okay, please understand, these are very important. Small molecule, which usually a substrate, which causes those enzymes to appear, synthesis of those enzymes takes place because of the appearance of this molecule, that is called as an inducer. It is called as an inducer. So when a suitable substrate is added, in case of bacteria I'm talking about, enzyme activity, not only enzyme activity, but number of enzymes, they appear, the number of enzymes, the copies of enzymes, it quickly rises. Enzyme activity appears very rapidly and the number of copies of enzymes rises very rapidly. And as soon as that substrate is withdrawn from the medium, the synthesis of enzyme as well as the activity of the enzyme stops as rapidly as it originally started. जितनी तेजी से वो एंजाइम एक्टिविटी अपीयर हुई थी, जितनी तेजी के साथ में उसके कॉपी नंबर बड़े थे, उतनी ही तेजी के साथ में उसकी एक्टिविटी कम हो जाएगी और उसका कॉपी नंबर भी कम हो जाएगा, सिंथेसिस बंद हो जाएगा क्योंकि अब सबस्ट्रेट नहीं है. ओके, सो दिस इज व्हाट इज मेंट बाय इकोनॉमी, कि व्हाट बैक्टीरिया विल डू मेंटेनिंग एन इन्वेंटरी ऑफ दोज एंजाइम्स फॉर व्हिच द सबस्ट्रेट इज नॉट अवेलेबल. ओके, एंड एज सून एज द सबस्ट्रेट अपीयर्स, it has got the capability, it has got the flexibility, it has got the swiftness, it very rapidly starts synthesizing those enzymes. Okay, this is called as enzyme induction. ये आपको ध्यान रखना है, enzyme induction, inducer and inducible enzymes. Similarly, enzyme suppression. What also has been noted was this, that synthesis of certain enzymes stops when the product of the catalyzed reaction, enzyme catalyzes conversion or synthesis of a particular product. But if that product appears into the medium, the synthesis of those enzymes stops. Okay. When a particular product is being made available, ready made to the bacteria, what is the point in endogenously synthesizing it? Are you getting my point? If that particular compound, if that particular metabolite is being made available ready-made to the bacteria, there is no point for the bacteria to keep synthesizing that compound within itself. Okay, then what it is doing, it is unnecessarily utilizing its resources because that particular product is available ready-made. So as soon as that product comes into the medium, the synthesis of certain enzymes which are involved in its synthesis of that product, it stops. And this phenomenon is called as enzyme suppression. So enzyme induction and enzyme suppression. The molecule, usually the product. In the earlier case, we have seen that small molecule, usually the substrate. Here in this case, what we are seeing, that small molecule, usually the product of that particular enzyme catalyzed reaction, which stops the synthesis of enzyme, it is called as co-repressor. वहां पर हमने बोला था इंड्यूसर, यहाँ पर उसका नाम है co-repressor. Okay, and these enzymes are called as suppressible enzymes. एक inducible enzyme हमने word नया देखा इस बार. We got familiarized with this word inducible enzyme, and suppressible enzyme means whose activity can be suppressed when the product of that particular enzyme catalyzed reaction or a group of reaction appears into the medium, the final product. Then the synthesis of all the enzymes which are involved in synthesizing that final product through a series of reactions, the synthesis of all those enzymes is going to stop. This is called as enzyme suppression. And that final product which is responsible for this phenomenon is called as co-repressor. Now, enzyme induction and enzyme suppression, they are more or less the same phenomenon seen from different perspective. Okay, why I am saying so? Because in one case, what is happening? In case of enzyme induction, the bacterium adjusts its ability to metabolize a given substrate. Okay. In case of enzyme induction, what bacterium is doing? Bacterium is adjusting its ability to metabolize a given substrate. As soon as it appears into the medium, bacterium adjusts its ability to utilize that substrate. It's by synthesizing, by initiating synthesis of enzymes which are capable of metabolizing that substrate, and it can be used for its growth. And in another case, the bacterium adjusts its ability to synthesize a given metabolite. In case of enzyme suppression, when that final product appears, it adjusts its ability to synthesize that particular product. Means it stops synthesizing that particular product because it has appeared into the medium. The ability to act as an inducer or co-repressor is highly specific. Not any compound, any metabolite can act as an inducer or a co-repressor. It is highly specific. Usually, substrate in case of enzyme induction and the product in case of enzyme suppression, or a closely related compound can serve as inducer or co-repressor. Not any compound can serve as co-repressor or inducer. Only substrate in case of enzyme induction and product in case of enzyme suppression, or a closely related compound can serve as inducer or co-repressor. Generally, please understand, an inducer is metabolized because it is a substrate by the enzyme or group of enzymes, therefore S, whose synthesis it induces. Inducer is usually a substrate and it gets metabolized by the activity of the enzymes, single or more than one, the synthesis of which it induces. But sometimes it can induce enzyme synthesis without being metabolized itself. In some cases, it may not get metabolized. In this case, it is called as gratuitous inducer. Gratuitous inducer. Please understand and remember, memorize this. In majority of the cases, the inducer gets metabolized, but in some cases, though it induces the synthesis, but doesn't get metabolized. This is example is given over here. Isopropyl thiogalactoside, IPTG. Isopropyl thiogalactoside is a gratuitous inducer of lac operon. Lactose is the inducer, it gets metabolized, but the lac operon can be induced by this particular compound also, by this particular metabolite also, whereas this metabolite doesn't get metabolized. So this is called as gratuitous inducer. Less than a minute, the meeting will end abruptly anytime. These are the two operon that we'll be understanding. Taking example, lac operon, which is an inducible operon. Lac operon is an inducible operon and the inducer is lactose. And trip operon, it is a repressible operon and the co-repressor is tryptophan molecule. Co-repressor is tryptophan molecule. So both of these we are going to discuss in detail. So this is all for this lecture. Thank you very much. We'll continue on Saturday.